All right, props. It's a fiery week in Judaism. So the title of my talk is The Blessing of Being Dazed and Confused. So it starts off with the mitzvah that we have to be happy. There are a number of important sources that we have from our scholars and from the Torah that it's important to be happy in Judaism. Mitzvah gedola lios b'simcha. It's a big mitzvah to be happy. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Serve God with happiness. We have to be happy, and we have to take that happiness into our Judaism day in, day out, and serve God with that happiness. For me, happiness has been a struggle. Luckily, I'm in good company. They say in the name of the Vilna Gaon that the most difficult mitzvah in all of Judaism is the mitzvah on Sukkot, to be happy for a week straight. Anybody can be happy, or most people can be happy for moments in between, or maybe elongated moments, but prolonged, real happiness, sustained happiness is very, very difficult to do. Don't worry, I am a happy person overall, but a while ago I diagnosed myself with resting sad face. I know from when I was a kid, people used to walk over to me all the time, and they would say, "What's wrong?" And I would say, "Nothing is wrong, I'm just thinking." And I began to think that maybe I was doing something wrong for looking unhappy all the time. But it was inescapable, because I really was always thinking, and sometimes this look of deep thought can make it appear as if you're unhappy. As they say, ignorance is bliss. And if that's true, then an awareness, especially a profound awareness, can sometimes take away from bliss. It can make you feel unhappy to have so many things to think about all the time. And for me, overthinking has been a challenge. Things are hard. Work is hard. Family is hard. Life is hard. How do I make things better? Why do I have this problem? I thought I fixed this issue. Why am I dealing with it all over again? These are thoughts that come up. A study in 2016 from the University College in London had subjects play a game. They asked the subjects to, in a computer game, turn over a rock. And if that rock had a snake underneath it, they would get an electric shock. Zap. And what they discovered from this study was that if people had a choice between a 100% chance of getting a shock or a 50-50 chance of getting a shock, people would choose the 100% chance. Because more painful than an electric shock is the uncertainty, maybe I'll get an electric shock. Life is confusing. Life is challenging. Life is unpredictable. And that could be painful. It can be difficult to ignore our day-to-day reality just to put a smile on our face. And it also doesn't seem to be the best conclusion to forget day-to-day reality. We can't just ignore it. Life is hard. So how do we balance the confusing nature of life with our aspirations to smile? So Ben Soma says in Pirkei Avos, Ezu Chacham, who is a wise person? Halomed mikol adam, someone who learns from others. Or to be honest, I learned it well from Dale Carnegie, who said that if you're ever in a private area with somebody, there's a strong chance that the other person is an expert in something. So try to learn from that person something that they're good at. So I found myself in a quiet area with someone a few weeks ago, one of these guys that is just happy all the time. I asked him, clearly you've worked on being happy. Tell me, how did you build this projection so that at least it looks like you're happy all the time? What did you do? So he said to me, let's call him Daryl. Daryl said to me that he learned from Rav Avigdor Miller that if there's something that makes you unhappy, just learn about that thing, why it's more miraculous than you're aware. So here's the example he gave me. he didn't like the rain. He didn't like getting wet. He didn't like the wind. Storms were not his thing. They always made him unhappy. He was annoyed when he was stuck in any kind of rainstorm. So he learned about rain and storms, and what he discovered is that if all the water evaporate from the ocean and just go straight up into the clouds, and then eventually the clouds would become overwhelmed with that liquid, and then it would come back straight down, it would go into the ocean again. The only way to get water to go across the whole world, or wherever it's necessary to allow us to eat, grow things, it necessitates wind. So wind plus rain equal storms. It's a part of life. It's actually a beautiful, miraculous part of life that God created the world in this way, that not only does water evaporate from the ocean, but the wind blows it and then it could rain wherever it's needed to rain. So he told me from that point on, whenever he was outside in the rain, it would annoy him at first, and then he would say, "This is amazing." And then it made him happy. So this seemed logical to me. If something makes you unhappy, if something is difficult and challenging, just try to understand, why is this thing here? So for me, a lot of the challenges that I've had in maintaining long-term, ongoing happiness is this overthinking module, that life is confusing and there's a lot to think about. So I had to ask myself, okay, what's miraculous about being confused? What's beautiful and meaningful about the fact that confusion is a part of life? So let's learn from the ultimate battleground of confusion. The Torah says that when the Jewish people left Egypt, they had a battle with Amalek. Our sages teach us that the Jewish people represent clarity, vision, focus, and that Amalek represented confusion and doubt. That was the battleground that started then. So the Torah teaches that Moshe sat on a hill and he put his hands up during the battle. And whenever his hands were up during the battle, the Jewish people would be successful on the battlefield. But whenever his hands would get tired, heavy, and go low, the Jewish people would start not doing so good. And so back and forth it went until finally Aaron and Hur held up Moshe's hands up high so that they could maintain that capacity. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah explains that the Jewish people would look up to Moshe, and when his hands were going up high towards the heavens, they would believe Hashem is here. Hashem is taking care of this battle. And with that clarity and vision and focus, they would be winning on the battlefield. But when Moshe's hands would go low, they would lose that thought. They would start to become unclear. They would lose that confidence in Hashem. And then they would start to lose on the battlefield. But how exactly did this work? The Jewish people were fighting, or they were staring at Moshe the whole time? What does this mean, that whenever Moshe would do something with his hands, it would somehow impact them? And for that matter, what are we playing around with? If it was as simple as Moshe keeping his hands up, and then we would be winning, why didn't Aaron and Hur just start off holding Moshe's hands straight up in the air? It would have been a clear-cut win if they just would have done that from the start. So the Ibn Ezra actually explains that this is true. It was never possible for Moshe or any person to hold up their hands indefinitely. That's just not how life works. It's not how the body works. Eventually the blood will drain enough from your hands downwards until your fingers and your arms get tired, and then they drop. We don't have a choice in the matter. Then the blood goes back into your hands, you regain your strength, and then it goes upwards. We know this is the case. So perhaps the answer is that this is the very battleground of life during that battle with Amalek and forever afterwards. It is natural, the way that God built us, that we want to raise our hands upwards to God. But while we do that and the blood drains from our hands towards our heart, we are saying to God, we don't want to think that the things around the world are because of our own hands, what we're doing. We believe in you, God. On the battlefield, you dictate the victor, right? In the world that we're dealing with, the war, we know that God is carrying every single nuance of every plane, every jet, every bomb. He's in charge. So we say, God, we believe in you. With that clarity, we know. But then God says back to us, the longer you keep your hands upwards, I'm going to drain the blood towards your heart. Because while you want to give credit to the heart of the universe, to the heart of existence, which is God, Hashem says, now lower your hands because I want that blood to come back into your hands because I need you to be a part of it as well. I need you to do something with your hands. I need you to be a part of it. And that part that we have is that grappling with confusion. He wants us to be here too. And so we put our arms up, and He puts our arms down. And that is the battlefield of confusion and doubt that we were in then, and we continue to find ourselves in now. It is only because life is difficult in the end that we get to learn about people who are kind to us. It is only because life is mysterious that we get to enjoy the reward of curiosity. It is only because life is challenging that we get to go through the surrender of trusting in God even when we don't understand. These are the gems of life. It's beautiful to be confused. Confusion is bliss. Confusion is a blessing. It gives us just enough space to have a wondrous and beautiful life. Now, the term for that area that the earth exists, that allows us to have existence in our proximity to the sun, is called the Goldilocks zone. If the earth was any further away from the sun, everything would freeze and there'd be no life. But if the earth was a little bit closer to the sun, we'd all burn up. So just like Goldilocks' porridge that she liked in the bear's house, it's just right. Not too hot, not too cold. So the sun represents the greatness of God. If we were any further away than we are now to the awareness that we have of the greatness of God, the world would be complete chaos, which is what the world was before the Torah came down. We need an awareness of the truth of the world to keep us going, to keep us warm. But if we were any closer than we were now to the complete awareness of God, we'd be burnt up. We'd be absorbed by that clarity and that truth. We would lose our essence, our existence, our personality, our struggle. There would be no more us. That would be our hands going up to God, and God drains the blood from our hands to say, that's not what I want. I want you to be here also. So the confusion over the clarity is the preferred state of human consciousness so that we could be in that Goldilocks zone. Warm and just right. So, you may have been wondering why we have a fire here. I love fire. Fire is so mysterious. It's destructive, but it also cooks our food so we could eat. It could become uncontrollable, but when harnessed, it turns our fuel into power. It's too hot to touch, but it's too beautiful to look away. It's so much a part of our world, but it's also otherworldly. Fire touches both sides of the spectrum, between clarity and confusion. Fire can also represent different emotions. I love the fire of Lag BaOmer, as our Landis was discussing, that throughout Jewish communities, bonfires are lit. There's songs, and there's singing, and there's dancing, and we connect and have a great time. But we also light a Yortzeit candle to commemorate someone who passed away. So fire can represent both the greatness of life and those moments of sorrow that we remember when we think of those who have passed. Shlomo HaMelech wrote in Mishlei, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that the fire of God is the soul of man. The dancing light reminds us of the dancing of the neshama, of the human soul, always reaching upwards, but never without its jumps and hesitations. The fire is just like us. It's warm, and with all of its movements, it's only really ever reaching upwards. but it doesn't really belong here. It's just a miniature version of the sun, creating worth exactly as it is now, with its ups and its downs all built in. And that's exactly how it brings light into the world. If it would remove itself from the wick and absorb itself into the sun, then we'd be losing out from all the warmth created by its very struggle, by its process in the world. Our struggles and confusions are something like this. It's exactly what we are. Mysterious, beautiful, warm, and full of light. So I leave you with one story. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is an organization that tries to set up children who are battling severe illnesses to allow them a chance at one significant wish towards what might be the end of their life. Usually they want to meet some kind of a celebrity or do a fun trip. And a little while back, there was a child who said that he wants to meet with President Donald J. Trump. So they said, okay, we can try to make that happen. And in the end, they weren't able to. But they were able to tell him that if you write a letter, we can get it to President Trump and we think that he'll read it. So the child wrote a letter, and he knew that the president would read it. So in his letter, he described his illness and his struggles, and then he wrote about a Jewish prisoner, a father of a large family, who had already served close to 9 years and still had decades of prison left ahead of him. He said, "You, Mr. President, have the power to free him. Perhaps this is why you were chosen to be the president." He concluded by pleading that if the president wished to bring joy to a very sick child, he should free Rabbi Rabushkin. President Trump read the letter and was deeply moved. Those close to him testified that he couldn't bear the disappointment of saying no to a helpless and selfless child. The next morning he signed the pardon, and Rabbi Rabushkin went free. Later it came out that Rabbi Rabushkin testified that in the criminal system you're only allowed to request the nature of his sentence being overturned 9 times. And just the day before, he had requested it his 9th time, and he was denied. He had completely run out of hope, at least hope in his own hands to do something about it. And so that night, he prayed one of his most strong prayers in his 9 years of being in prison. And he said, "God, now I know that I trust in you because there's nothing left that I can do." And he cried his heart out. And the next morning he was free. This is the nature of confusion. It puts us in the position where we have to ask ourselves, what do we do to free ourselves with what we're capable of doing? And then, when our hands lower and we've run out of strength, to turn to Hashem and say, "It's your turn now. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I believe in you." So let us daven together that Hashem can bring us to that ultimate day where we are beyond confusion, where everything is crystal clear, and everything is warm and bright and sunny all the time, like we're living on the surface of the sun. But until that day, that we should have the strength and fortitude to find the beauty in the confusions of every day. That we can know that things are difficult, we can know that things are challenging, and we can consider them and be deep in thought, but we can somehow also maintain a happy face. Thank you very much.